Hello and welcome, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. So, today I want to continue in this feeling that I have of moving out of where we've been. We've been stuck in a really dark, ugly scenario with all of this COVID lockdown, Omicron nonsense. And want to move towards recreating our world, getting back our hope, getting back our sense of purpose. And so I thought, let's go ahead and talk about how we can actively seek to transform ourselves and evolve. So I'm going to revisit something that I've spoke a lot about, which is the 9 worlds of the world tree, but specifically what we're going to focus on is the 9 aspects of your identity. We're going to talk about spiritual psychology here. So the 9 worlds of the world tree are not only dimensions that exist in other realms. They're not only the home of other entities and beings, they also are constantly influencing us. And how we choose to interact with them will determine our psychological state of being. It will determine our everything, our health, our success, our prosperity. And it's extremely important that we understand that we live in a universe that responds to action. There are things that are out of your control. There are some things you cannot change. But there are things that you can choose to evolve. There are things you can completely transform your entire existence. You can completely transform your health. You can completely transform your reality. So instead of just doing what we do oftentimes, which is just go get an astrological reading or get a rune reading or whatever it is that tells us here's who you are, here's what's going on. We can be true shamans and true wizards, which is that we use these energies to transform ourselves. We take a look at our limitations, and while we fully accept our limitations, we also realize that limitations can be road signs which point us in the direction of where we can put our energies, and then our weaknesses become our strengths. So let's go ahead and get started talking about the 9 worlds of the world tree. So we have, of course, I want you to take a look at this, which is the rune wheel. And this is a representation of the 9 worlds in a 2-dimensional plane. So the center there, where all of the spokes come together, that would be the Middle Earth. That would be your conscious experience of your reality. In your mind, that feels fixed. You feel like this is who I am, this is what is going on, none of this can change. But it's actually, I want you to look at that center world, which is the Middle Earth, which is your conscious experience and your interaction with all of the other 8 worlds, how you choose to interact with them, which you think you don't have any control over, that creates this 9th world of Middle Earth. But I want you to see this as a projection. So imagine a movie screen. And what you're seeing on the projection is you're seeing this fixed picture. And that's your conscious experience. But actually what's happening is that there is a lens and then there is some images behind the lens, and behind the images is a light. And the light is projecting through the image, which is going through the lens, which is putting it up on the screen. So you are the light in the projector. You're not the lens, you're not the screen, but you think, and you look up at the screen and you see that picture of yourself, you think, that's who I am, that's fixed. But it's not. If we adjust the lighting, if we change the image underneath, we can do all kinds of things to change what that projection on the screen is. So in that center world there, which we call Middle Earth, all of these other 8 worlds, which are shining into that Middle Earth area, they are all having an effect. But you can choose to interact with them. The way you choose to interact with these energies and these lights coming at you will change what the projection is. So you may be in conflict with some of these energies, and you may be functioning well with some others. But the idea is to be fully surrendered to the light within, which is your divinity. Fully surrendered to that, so that you can interact with these other 8 lights beaming on you in a way that serves you. All right? So have this picture in your head of, you don't have to, this is the rune wheel, but just the idea is keep this 2-dimensional idea of all of the worlds starting in the north and going around all the way to the northwest. We're going to go through each one of those and see what these have to do with your psyche. All right? So let me get rid of this here. And I can sit normally. Okay, so starting in the center, this is what we just talked about. So this is Midgard, the home of human beings. And it's represented by the earth, which is where we live. We are beings of the earth. I've already explained to you what the center is. Here's another representation. The center here, which is Middle Earth, this is the cumulative projection of all the other 8 worlds coming together to create this 9th, which is your conscious experience. All right, so the next world we want to start with is in the north, which is called the mist world. So that is a great word for this world, because what does, foggy, misty worlds, what does that represent? There's a reason why in supernatural movies, ghost movies, there's fog everywhere, because it gives you this feeling of the fog creates potential. So that's what the mist world is in the north. The north is the mist world, and the mist world is the closest thing to Gnunga Gap, which is the void. It's the closest thing we have to the void in the actual 9 worlds. Now, the mist world actually is not the void. It is a created, manifested reality. But in that reality, you have energy, you have matter, but none of it has become limited. So I'm a limited creation here. I'm only 5'9", whatever. I've got limitations. That's energy has come together, and pure potential has now fixed itself as a specific expression in 3-dimensional reality. So just on the other side of that is the mist world, which is potential. So this is energy and matter which has not yet been delineated in any specific form. So what does this represent? This represents in your psyche This represents what can be. It represents potential. So the mist world can be very powerful if you allow it into your psyche. You can then become malleable. You don't have to be so identified and fixed in any specific way. So when we do a 9-world rune reading, the north represents what is coming to you. Now, since it's in the mist world, it's not fixed, which means that it doesn't have to come to you. So if you do a 9-world rune reading and let's say Uruj reversed comes up, then what that will represent is a lack of power. So that would mean that in that reading, your conscious experience will be in the future this experience of lack of power. But since it's in the mist world, it hasn't been completely solidified yet, which means that you can do something to potentially change that because it hasn't manifested yet. It's what will definitely come if you do nothing. If you continue on your path, whatever is in the north, if it's something good, then don't do anything. You're on the right path. If it's Uruj not reversed, then that would mean that power is coming to you, determination is coming to you. So you wouldn't want to do anything because those are good things. But if something is negative that's coming towards you, or you'll experience it as something negative, then the idea is, okay, what can I do to change my outlook, to change my behavior, to change my thoughts in order to create a different reality? All right, so that's the north. The north represents the potential that has not manifested yet that you can have some ability to change. And it's important to know that Odin is associated with the planet Mercury, and Mercury is the guardian of the north. And Odin represents the shaman who has the ability to change his intellectual interaction with things so that he can shift his reality, so he can transcend. And this was Odin's experience on the world tree, where he died to his little self. He died to his ego, if we can call it that, but he died to his intellect. Your intellect is not your mind. Most people, when we talk about the mind, they really mean the intellect. The intellect is not your mind. Your mind observes, your mind experiences, your mind feels, your mind projects. The intellect does none of those things. The intellect is literally a computer that decides what is up, what is down. Actually, the intellect fixes things into three-dimensional reality. When you make assumptions, when you come to conclusions, when you make judgments about things, you then fix them in place at the very least in your own mind, and they can't be changed once you've made your opinion, which is one of the reasons why I don't want to hear people's opinions on the chat. I want to hear your feelings, because when you're in a state of your feeling, you can change how you choose to interact with this information, which can change you. Questions are the same. Questions are seeking to change your understanding. So that's why I only want your questions and your feelings. Everything else is meaningless because I'm not interested in interacting with you once you've solidified yourself. I don't care about that. I'm only interested in helping you to evolve to something greater than what you are. So this is why Odin is the guardian of the north, because he represents a malleable intellect that then when you have that, you have the ability to literally change reality. You become like Odin. All right, so the next world we are going to go to is an extremely important world that we probably don't fully appreciate or make use of, and that is the fortress of the celestial gods, and this is in the northeast. This represents not your higher self, that's the northwest. This represents um, the highest expression of energy. So these are the celestial gods. There's only two fortresses in the 9 worlds. One is the fortress of the celestial gods, and the other one is the fortress of the middle world, which is where we live. And that tells you something. So in terms of any other world, I mean, it makes sense. In the Middle Earth, we have to have a fortress because we're being bombarded by these other dimensional energies. So we need to filter that out in the same way that the Earth needs to filter out the radiation of the sun with the atmosphere. So all of the gases in the atmosphere actually act like a fortress wall, which filters out the intensity of the radiation of the sun. The sun gives us life. You know, we now know, I mean, if you want to beat COVID, you got to get out in the sun and get some sun, which is why most people end up getting sick in the winter, because there's not enough sunlight for them to absorb. But as healing and necessary as that sunlight is, if we don't have that atmosphere surrounding us, the radiation from the sun would kill us. It's too much. So that's why we have the fortress in the Middle Earth. But why do the gods live in a fortress? They are that pure high-level radiation. You know, if we were to see the gods in their glory, it would burn the eyeballs out of our sockets of our head. We couldn't tolerate that intense brightness, that intense purity of the gods. So they live in a fortress because the gods live in timeless perfection. So they represent something greater, always something beyond. So the northeast is associated with your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, your inspirations. When you are inspired, the story of the celestial gods inspires you to be greater than you are, to go beyond your limitation. So when you do not have a healthy interaction with the northeast, you can be depressed, you can have a lack of hope. This is how I was feeling when I had COVID. I just felt so sad and depressed and hopeless. And it was a really tough time. I mean, I cried more during those 2 weeks than I can, remember. I was miserable. And, so I can say that I didn't have a strong connection to the realm of the celestial gods. So I had no inspiration. I had no aspiration. And so if you're like that, if you feel depressed, if you feel hopeless, if you feel like there's no hope for you, this is the majority of people who believe in, we have to exit the matrix. Don't get me wrong, there is a matrix. But the idea that this is a direct, you can now experience this, what I'm going to explain to you. So the people who believe that there are false beings of light who are waiting for you when you die to trick you into reincarnating so that they can suck the life out of you. This is somebody who has a very bad interaction with the realm of the celestial gods. The Tibetan Buddhists have it absolutely correct. They say that when you die, the first thing that will happen is that you will see a light. And if you have any fear of that light, then you will be pulled down back into the world of illusion and you will be reincarnated. So doesn't matter who you are, what your karma is, the moment that you die, if you see this light and you completely and fearlessly surrender to that light, you're surrendering to your own soul, and you will become enlightened and you will never have to be reincarnated. And it's the exact opposite of what people who believe this teach. And it's the very thing that they want. What they want the most is freedom from reincarnation. But their fear of it actually creates this distorted understanding where they end up projecting their fear onto the realm of the celestial gods. And they see the celestial gods as being these evil, false beings of light that are seeking to suck the life out of you, and that's their projection, because that's how they experience the world. They experience the world that the world is cold, unloving, and is sucking the life out of them. And that can change. You can have a complete shift in that by choosing to worship the celestial deities. So this is why worshiping of deities is helpful. They represent something beyond your limitation that you strive for, a perfection that you can strive for. And that will result in you having hope in your life, wanting to better yourself, seeing hope for the future, wanting to create things and do things. So if you don't have that, one of the ways you can do that is by worshiping a deity. Now, not every deity is the right deity for you. And for that, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and you can get an astrology reading from me or from one of my certified astrologers. And they will share with you what deities and what planets are the most helpful and beneficial for you in terms of how to follow your dharma. The deity you want to look for is the Dharma Devata, and everybody has one. It's a specific planet, which also the planets are gateways to deities, and there are specific deities that will guide you to your highest path in life. And this is what the Northeast represents. It represents your dharma, your orlog, your origin law. Orlog is origin law, that which within you. Everybody has their own specific orlog. And that which within you is best for you to achieve your highest potential. So this is the Northeast, and this is why in the Vedic tradition, the Northeast, if in doubt, you place an altar in the Northeast, because that represents the realm of the celestial gods. And by worshiping them, you seek to become better than what you are. You have hope, you have inspiration, you have aspiration. And again, hope and inspiration and aspiration moves you towards taking actions. So remember, unlike what you're told with the law of attraction, this is a universe that responds to your actions far more than to your thoughts and your feelings. You can be filled with misery and hopelessness, but still take action towards what you want. You can be filled with misery and hopelessness and take the action of worshiping a deity. These are all actions. Your beliefs, what you choose to believe, which you don't think you have any control over, but you do. The beliefs that you choose to adopt are also actions, which creates a response in the universe. Your feelings don't. Your feelings are your own internal, what's called intrapsychic responses to your own internal stimuli, your own past, your own interaction, but you don't have to act on those. You can act completely contrary to your thoughts and your feelings. But that takes maturity and discipline, which is why people who love the law of attraction are, by and large, very immature and childish in the way they look at the world, because they never had the ability to be little kids. It's little kids, little infants and little toddlers, they have the right to be narcissistic and respond totally to their feelings. But once you grow up, you have to learn to be self-individuated, which is what we're going to talk about next in the East. You learn to be self-individuated, and that means you can parent and love yourself through your pain and your disappointment to give you the discipline and the maturity to take action, sometimes completely opposite of your feelings. So now let's move to the East, which is the realm, it's called in the Norse tradition, the giant home. So what are the giants? Generally speaking, the giants represent narcissism, which is actually a lack of ego. In conversational parlance, we say, "Oh, that guy has a huge ego." We have to say, "You have to get out of your own ego." "Oh, that's your ego talking." So ego is Greek for I. It means identity. I, ego. In the Old English, it was, and in Germanic, it was ich, I, ego. In Greek, I am, ego eimi, I am. So it means I, means an identity. Everybody has to have one. So this false New Age idea of I have no ego, I am one with everything, is actually very narcissistic. It's very destructive. It's very self-destructive, because in order to function, you must have an ego. You must have an individuated self. And so when somebody is operating like the giants, like this giant here, this came from, I forget what the name of that movie was. It was a really great film. But this giant is walking around looking for something to grab and eat and step on and destroy. It represents narcissism. So it represents a lack of individuated self. Individuated self, again, very briefly, is created when you are an infant and a toddler. You don't have an identity. You are simply filled with feelings and physical sensations, drives, instincts. That's all you are. You don't have a self yet. And so a loving parent will reward you simply for being a narcissist, for simply having your own just feelings. Because babies, if something bothers them, they cry. They don't have any ability to stop crying. They cry the moment they have any discomfort. And the parent, if they're a loving parent, rushes to them, picks them up, and pats them, and rewards them for having a feeling. If they need to poop, if they need to burp, if they're happy and they giggle, we giggle along with them. We completely, totally mirror them or reward them for whatever narcissistic experience they have, which is their sensations and their feelings. Then, as they get to be about 4 years old, they start to individuate, which means they start to separate. Until then, they're completely enmeshed with their parents. There is no difference between them and their mother. They're completely enmeshed. But by the time they get to be about 4 years old, they start to individuate, and they show that by, and the terrible twos, it comes in as well, they start to rebel. They start to say no, and they start to become their own person. And then they have to learn discipline. So right around age 4, what do? We put them in nursery school, which is a symbol of you have to now become your own person. And then what ends up happening around 4 years old, the child runs into disappointment. They can no longer have immediate And this is another way to create narcissists is you never give any boundaries. When they reach 4 years old, you don't discipline them or put boundaries. You give them whatever they want. That will also create a narcissist. So either not loving them or reflecting their narcissism, you know, neglecting them can create a narcissist because they never get past that narcissistic phase. Or when they start to individuate and they try to extend their narcissistic demand over the parents, if the parents give them whatever they want, that will turn them into a narcissist also, which means that they won't individuate. But healthily, when they get to be around 4 years old, people start saying no. No, you can't do that. No, you can't have that. Wait until dinner. If you're going to have a temper tantrum, you can go in the room, and when you're done, you can come out and be with the rest of us. Until then, we're going to lock you in your room until you cry it out. That is different. And so if the child for those first 4 years was loved and reflected and rewarded for all of their thoughts, their feelings, and their impulses, then they learn to parent themselves. So that's a good example. The 4-year-old is having a temper tantrum, and mommy picks up the 4-year-old, kicking and screaming, puts them in the room, closes the door, and says, when you calm down, you can come out. Closes the door, and the child screams and screams and screams it out, and then they learn to self-soothe, which is a way of doing what the parents did. They start to tell themselves, yes, you're not getting what you want, you're angry, you're upset, but you have value simply because you exist, which was their earlier message. You're screaming, you're crying, you're an infant. I am rewarding you for no other reason other than you exist. You have the right to exist because you have awareness. You have these feelings, and that is the only thing that you need to do right now is just be aware and have your feelings. When they get to be around 4, they start to have to do that for themselves. So they love themselves, they give themselves that message, they suck their thumb, they do whatever, which makes them feel like you have value, I have value just because I exist. I'm okay even though I didn't get what I wanted. I'm okay even though mommy isn't treating me the way that I want. I'm okay, I have value, and then that calms them down, and then they go back out and they learn how to interact with some maturity, with some discipline. That's why we put them in nursery school at age 4. And then age 5, they go to kindergarten, and it's just this continuous evolution of becoming an adult, which is by the time you're an adult, you now have to live opposite. You have to live in a way where you are here, you get paid for what you do, not for having an experience. And that's okay because your job is to self-soothe. It's not the world's job to soothe you. So this is when you have people with big egos who need to have other people to constantly praise them or to give them what they want. That means they never got to individuate. So they're still little kids. They're 4-year-olds in adult bodies. And this is somebody with a big ego. And that is the giants. So the giants are that. They represent an ego that cannot individuate. It expands beyond, it's huge. It only has one eyeball, walks around grabbing the sheep and biting their heads off, stuffing on people's houses, eating people. Means they're just completely, totally clueless to anything other than themselves. They're narcissists with no true sense of self. And this is why Thor always goes out in the east and battles the trolls, because Thor, his rune, the Thurisaj rune, represents boundaries, and he protects human life. So this is in the east. So it's incredibly important to have an ego, a true ego, which is individuated. You have your own internal sense of uh, loving yourself, empowering yourself. You have an internal locus of control, which means that you don't need anything outside of you to get what you need. Other people's thoughts, feelings, judgments, and actions don't define who you are. That you may get yourself hurt, you may get disappointed, you may be damaged by other people, but you have the ability to go, you know what? I know who I am, and I have value, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If somebody's coming at me for something I didn't do, that's got nothing to do with me, that's completely their problem. This is an individuated ego. And so this is why working with the East, the sun rising in the East represents the ego, the true self, the true individuated self, which is, if you become individuated in your human psyche, that will lead you toward your big self, which is your soul. And then you can merge your tiny ego with your big ego, and then you can become more spiritual. All right, so that's the East, the realm of the giants. And now we move on to the Southeast, which is the dwarf home. The dwarves are magical beings that live in caves under the earth, and they love gold. They love riches. The dwarves have the ability to manifest and create in three-dimensional world. In Norse mythology, all of the gods get their tools and their magical weapons from the dwarves. The dwarves create them. This is how powerful they are. The four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, are said to be dwarves. That's the power that they have. I've come to the conclusion, based on reading the Norse myths, that Odin himself was a dwarf who evolved beyond that and became the head of the gods. And human beings are spirits. It's, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but it's helpful to see our souls as dwarves that have evolved beyond into the realm of divinity. The dwarves in Norse mythology were created from life force energy. The celestial gods, literally like clay, grabbed life force energy, the ambient energy of the universe, grabbed it and molded it into human-like. They're not humans, they're human-like. And in Norse mythology, if you were to walk up and you saw a dwarf and a human, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So this idea that dwarves are these little stocky Scottish bearded people with, pointy hats, that's something that was created later in the Middle Ages by the church. That's not what dwarves originally were. Dwarves and humans are indistinguishable. And that's because the dwarves represent our subconscious minds. And it is our subconscious, not our unconscious. We'll talk about that. There's a difference. Please know the difference between subconscious and unconscious. Drives me crazy. Even some psychologists throw out the word subconscious when they mean unconscious. But the subconscious mind is something that we have access to. So you have your conscious mind, your subconscious, and your unconscious. Your unconscious is exactly what it says. You're not conscious of it. You can't choose to just magically be conscious of what's in your unconscious mind. If that were the case, it wouldn't be called the unconscious. The subconscious is below the conscious level. It's not something that you think about actively throughout the day, but you can access it whenever you want. What is your driver's license You know. What is your birthday? You know. How old are you? You know. You can go weeks or months without thinking of those numbers, those dates, because they're stored in your subconscious mind. And so when I ask you, you immediately go into the folder, pull it out, and you have conscious awareness of that. You can't do that with your unconscious mind. But you can do it with your subconscious. So in terms of that screen that you project yourself onto, which is the ninth world, the Middle Earth, that projection on the screen which you think is fixed, the subconscious mind is the lens. It projects what is in your unconscious mind onto your conscious experience. You don't know where it came from. You don't know what created it. You just see it there as this fixed thing on this two-dimensional screen, but your subconscious projects it. So the dwarves have the ability to project onto the screen of reality anything. They're that powerful. They're, again, so powerful that the weapons of the gods were created by the dwarves. The subconscious intention. So that lens, you can focus that lens on different things. Here's again where the law of attraction falls short, because they don't know the difference between the subconscious and the unconscious. They believe that if they shove positive affirmations into their conscious mind, which is really an attempt to change the picture behind the lens, but in front of the light. If you say, I am happy, I'm a millionaire, I live in a, and you keep throwing these positive affirmations, it's an attempt to change the picture behind the lens. So positive affirmations do throw up onto your screen impermanent, temporary pictures. The problem is that you have an unconscious mind, which is really the source of all of those pictures that is put in front of the lens of your projector. That's in your unconscious mind. So you can try and paste over them with positive affirmations, but the moment that you stop, your unconscious mind takes over. So even if you were to spend all of your waking moments, if you were to spend 16 hours a day focusing on what you want or what you think you want, because the other thing is law of attraction is arbitrary. It says you can throw up whatever image you choose and that'll work, and that's not true. It doesn't work like that. That's the whole soul desire thing, which I won't get into right now. So if you spend 16 hours a day forcing into your subconscious mind projections of what you want to create. Now, don't get me wrong, you might have some initial success. People, law of attraction, sometimes they have initial success. And if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. You may have some initial success. Oh, I've been manifesting this. I've been concentrating on this, and I had it. It'll disappear. It won't last. Whatever you manifest won't stay around. It'll disappear very quickly. Within weeks or months, you'll be back to where you were, maybe even worse off than where you were. And then you'll feel guilty. You'll feel shameful. And you'll think you're doing something wrong, and you'll pretend everything's wonderful when in fact your life's falling apart. And that's because even if you spend 16 hours a day thinking about, oh, I live in a mansion, I'm a millionaire, then the moment that you go to sleep, assuming you could do that 16 hours uninterrupted. The moment you go to sleep, that disappears. And the unconscious mind comes up and then will manifest what's in the unconscious mind. So you'll never win that battle. You cannot simply paste over the unconscious mind with arbitrary subconscious projections. Won't work. The only way that the subconscious mind by itself can manifest with, I'm going to choose to intend this, is only when that subconscious projection is in alignment with your soul, with the light behind the picture. That's your soul. When your soul is already, because it's already in your soul, this is the soul desire. When your soul desire is in alignment with what you are trying to envision, then it'll work. As long as you stay in alignment with it, then you can keep that manifested. But if you are arbitrarily imposing something onto your subconscious lens that is not in alignment with what your soul wants, it will never last. It will fade away almost as soon as you project it onto your reality. So, that's the dwarf. That is the dwarf home in the southeast. Going to the south, this is the fire home. This is the realm of the demon Surt, who just is the force of entropy. And I don't care what anybody says, you cannot placate or worship or interact with Surt. It's just entropy. What is entropy? Entropy is, if you entropy is just this reality just coming apart. The universe is gonna go through entropy, where the planets just continue to move away from each other, the stars move away from each other, and eventually there's just going to be this dark, empty universe. There will be, and things will just sort of come apart. Entropy is age. I'm experiencing it now as I'm getting to be 58. My body isn't holding itself together the way it used to. As you get older, you go through entropy and things just start coming apart. So this is the demon Surt, and this is the fire element. So what does this have to do? How can we interact with this? Well, the other aspect of the south is associated with the planet Mars. Mars represents purification by fire. This is associated with your energy, your motivation. Mars is a warrior. So through his actions, Mars seeks to destroy that which chokes off the life. So in the East, the ego is coming out and seeking to individuate. And as it does that, it tends to overreach itself. And one of the ways to look at it is in a forest. If you don't have forest fires, you end up with just all of this undergrowth that just chokes off the soil and chokes off everything, and nothing can grow. So every now and then you have to have a wildfire that comes in that burns off all of the brush so that the sunlight can get to the soil and new trees can sprout, and the ashes from all of those burnt up bushes then ends up acting to enliven the soil to create more life. So the act of purification, the act of the warrior, is to fight against corruption, things that choke off life. You fight against these things, you purify it with fire. This is done with your actions. And so when we get to the south, in the realm of the fire, this is passion, when you act passionately for yourself, for a cause, this is where you bump up against reality. So you want to become a famous movie star. You will take action towards that. Your ego is expanding to push you to become that. And then at some point you will have to experience the fire burning away your excess for yourself. You start to see your limitations. So the fire burns that, but it comes as a result of you seeking through your passion to project onto the world, here I am, here's what I'm here to do. And then through that, that crucible of reality, you then find out what is most important to you, who you truly are. Then we go to the underworld. So once you've gone through the fire of your ego being tested and purified, as you go up against objective reality with your immature narcissism of, here I am, world, and the world responds and says, well, we'll take that part, but we don't want that part. And then you go through a humbling process. This is when we go to the underworld. And the underworld is where we have to take a look at death. We die to those things that are not part of our true nature, our true orlog. We must die to them. And so this is a very healing place because the delusions that we had were our attachments to the illusion of this three-dimensional reality, and where we lose sight of our connection to ourself. So there's no coincidence that directly opposite from the southwest is the northeast, which is what? The fortress of the celestial gods. So then in our humility, as we're being ground into dust, going under the earth, and letting go of our expectations that don't serve our spiritual path, we look up to the highest heavens and we seek to be inspired again. This is the way out of the underworld. And then that brings us to the west, which is the home of the Vanir, the home of the gods of fertility and magic. So the west is truly the realm of death. The southwest is the underworld, but the west is truly the realm of death. It is the death of self, because it's directly opposite the east, which is the ego. You have to have an individuated ego, but then you must die to that, and you do that when you give of yourself selflessly to others. So the west is the realm of the elder gods. Now the reason why the Vanir, the gods of fertility and magic, the reason why they're called the elder gods isn't because they're older than the Aesir. That's nonsense. There are people that go around saying, oh, what happened is these Indo-Europeans came in and they brought the Aesir, but the Vanir were the elder gods. These were the gods that were worshipped by the hunter-gatherers before these horse warriors came in, and then you merge the two and you have the Aesir and the Vanir, and that's pure nonsense. It's not at all what that means. What you have is you have the gods who live in timeless perfection. So they're infants. You didn't know that, did you? The celestial gods are infants. They don't have experience. They are pure consciousness before it is manifested in an ego. So this is why they are so self-righteous, why they are so dogmatic. And you find dogmatic people, self-righteous people, usually identify. This is why conservatives, people who are on the far right, they associate with the Aesir, not the Vanir, because they're still rather childish and dogmatic in their view about the world. So they associate with that. Whereas you find people who are less dogmatic, who are more progressive in their thinking, more left-leaning, if you will, you find those people actually will exclusively worship the Vanir. And then you end up having a whole other set of imbalances, which I won't get into. But the balance aspect of the Vanir is that the Vanir are the gods of time and space. They are gods of experience. So they're the elder gods, not because they are necessarily older than the Aesir, but because they live in three-dimensional reality. And so they have experience. They have wisdom. The wisdom that comes from experience. The celestial gods don't have wisdom. They have inspiration. They have the purity of truth. The Vanir have wisdom. That's why they like the world. They like physical things. They like sex and food and drink and art and music and sensuality. This is grandma and grandpa. When you go to see grandma and grandpa, mom and dad have been saying, no candy, eat your vegetables, go to bed on time. And so you can't wait to go see grandma and grandpa. They've been around a long time, and grandma and grandpa know, you know what, you're only a child once. You should really just be a kid. Okay, don't tell your mom, but here's some candy. Okay, don't tell your mom, but we're going to stay up and watch this monster movie. Right? This is the elder gods. They've been around, they've experienced life, they know what it's all about. They love magic. They love, where do you hear stories? You go to grandma and grandpa and they'll tell you stories. They'll tell you they'll tell you stories they'll tell you ghost stories and elf stories and magic. That's grandma and grandpa. Because they've been there. They love this world. They're on their way out. And they look back and they go, God, wouldn't it be great to just... if I was a little kid... I was watching a movie on Netflix. I didn't watch a lot of it. It was a ghost story. And these people are living in this haunted house. And in the middle of the night, you hear this girl screaming and crying. And the dad goes in, and it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The dad goes in and sits down and says, what was it? And she said it was the bent neck woman. So she saw this ghost of a woman whose neck was bent. And she says, and the father says something like, oh, that's really awful. And then he says, dreams are just things that spill out of us. Like when you spill water, that's what dreams are. And then he says something beautiful, one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. He said that children are special because they have oceans. And so when their oceans spill out, their dreams are bigger. I'm using my own words, but that was basically what he was saying. And it was so beautiful because instead of shaming the child for having a nightmare, which obviously he thought it was. He didn't realize it was a ghost. It was just a nightmare. Instead of shaming the child and saying, there's nothing here, knock it off, go back to sleep, he says, no, you're special. You're having an experience, and you have this ocean of feelings that spills out. He didn't even bother to tell the kid it was a nightmare. It was such an empowering way to respond to a child's experience of the world. That's something the Vanir would do. The Vanir have no self. They've gone past that. They truly are people that have no self because they've experienced it through their experience of external reality, of giving themselves all of the sensuality that you want. They now don't need anything, and they only have things to give others. So they give selflessly, just like grandma and grandpa, just like Santa Claus. They give selflessly to others. And that's because they've been through the crucible of the South, and they've been through the underworld where they've let go of their limited attachments that don't serve their soul. And now, since they have no need for any of that, they're just there to give selflessly to others. So that's the realm of the West, the home of the Vanir, the gods of fertility, the elder gods. And then we move to the elf home in the Northwest, the home of the ascended masters. Now, as I said earlier, the Northeast is not your higher self. The realm of the celestial gods is not your higher self. It is a realm of perfection, if you want to call it the super high, I don't know what you would call that. But it's that which you seek that goes beyond the perfection that you seek. That is not the realm of the ascended masters. Because the realm of the celestial gods is unreachable. Because it's an unrealistic perfection. It serves a very powerful function, which is why we worship the gods. Because we seek that, and we should seek that. And it is the realm of the celestial gods, the hope of perfection, that acts as a lid over the underworld in the Southwest, which keeps all of the demons, the regrets, the ghosts, the unsatisfied desires, which is all that ghosts represent. Ghosts represent unsatisfied desires, your regrets. We can talk about what ghosts really are. But that's why ghosts are so frightening. They're frightening not because they're non-physical beings, because the gods themselves are non-physical beings and we're not frightened of them. The angels, which is what the elves represent, the ascended masters, we're not frightened of them. If an angel appears, we're not frightened of that. A ghost appears in front of us, a demon appears in front of us, we get scared out of our minds. Not because they are non-physical, but because they represent our desires that never get met, and the regret and the depression and the hopelessness that comes from not getting our selfish desires met. That is horrifically frightening to us, which is why little kids and old people, these are the people that experience ghosts more than anybody. Little kids and old people. All right, but we're talking about the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters represent the human beings who have gone through this process. They've gone through the underworld. They've gone through they've stayed in the world, and they give selflessly of their knowledge, their wisdom, their experience. They give love. They give acceptance. They're the people that you feel most comfortable around because they've been there and they know what you're going through, and they don't judge you, and they're helpful and loving. They transfer out of this world, and if they've lived their orlog, they become ascended masters. They become the elves, and the elves are, in one sense, almost superior to the gods because the elves don't have any ego, whereas the gods are full of ego. The elves no longer have any ego. They are now standing on the threshold between three-dimensional physical reality and whatever is beyond that. In our experience, we look at that as merging with the infinite. We can't even comprehend what that means. And the ascended masters are human beings who stand at the gate to that merging back into infinity. before they do, which is their selfish desire, they want to go there and become one with whatever. They stop, they turn back, and they look back to those of us on earth, and they represent our higher self. They represent the ability to know how we can best follow our true path, our orlog, our dharma. And so whenever you don't know what is the best action to do, face the northwest and meditate and say, show me what is the best path for me. And the ascended masters always, this is how you know you're communicating with an ascended master. The ascended masters will always tell you how your actions affect everything. They will show you that you live in a quantum field, that it is impossible for you to do anything without having that vibrate to the rest of consciousness, including the elves. And so when the elves are communicating with you, there will always be this feeling of, wow, that, if it's negative, that is destructive to me. And now I see that that is also destructive to everything else in the universe. And so there's never this discussion of what's good for me or good for others. That is never the discussion with the elves. Whenever you do what is best for you, you automatically raise the vibration of every other entity in existence. The life force energy, the web of weird itself, will vibrate on a higher level when you act in a way that is beneficial to you. You'll then know the difference. The elves will help you figure out what is the difference between selfishness in a negative way and selfishness in a positive way. They will always be able to help you figure that out. And you will always also see if what you need to do is focus on others. They will say, when you do this for other people, this is how it benefits you. Or if you do this for your own self-individuation, this is how it benefits the rest of existence. So they are the masters of the quantum field. And this is why, above all, you should always listen to the ascended masters. If in doubt, talk to the ascended masters. The northeast, the realm of the celestial gods, even though that is the direction of worship, based on the Taoist understanding, there are two ghost doors or demon doors. And those doors are the northeast and the southwest. This is why people who are fanatical, they love the celestial gods, but they're fanatical, because they can get lost in the childish narcissism that the gods are prey to, because the gods live in timeless perfection. They're infants in their thinking. Human beings, if you're not careful, this is why you have to put an altar in the northeast. Because if you, in your narcissism, start to see yourself as a god, which is what is narcissism? Somebody who doesn't have an individuated self, in order to avoid the horror of his emptiness, has to then create this fantasy of him being perfect. This is narcissism. So the danger of the northeast is narcissism. When you become dogmatic, you see things in black and white terms, and instead of worshiping the gods as a focal point for your perfection, you see the gods as yourself and you become them, and you're now perfect and everything I say is the truth. All you have to do is look at any cult leader, and you will see a narcissist who does what? They claim they're God. I'm the reincarnation of Jesus. I am God. I am Shiva, whatever. And so the elves are, in a sense, superior to the gods, because the elves, you will never have that kind of experience. If in doubt, always talk to the ascended masters. Always. That's the most powerful place to get knowledge and awareness. You can worship them if you want. They don't care. They understand if you worship them that it's because you're seeking to connect with your higher self. But if you just talk to them, ask for their input, like the wise, benevolent beings that they are, they will always come down to your level and speak to you in ways that will empower you. Just like that father who went to to his daughter that was having a nightmare. Instead of saying, "You're having a nightmare, go back to sleep," he said, "No, you're special. You have an ocean of emotions that spill out into this three-dimensional world." It was just such an amazingly wonderful way to, on the one hand, remove her fear and let her know that whatever that was can't harm her, and at the same time acknowledging the validity and the reality of her experience. It was just I'll never forget that. I don't know that I think I may have seen that before, but it didn't impact me like it did this last time. So coming back to now the center, which is the Middle Earth, the home of the humans, where we live. Coming back here. Your reality is not fixed. You are not a victim. You can choose to change your reality. You can choose to change what you believe. Bear in mind, beliefs are not the same as feelings. So a lot of people, their beliefs are created by their feelings. This is, again, people who want to buy into that nonsense that there are false beings of light who are seeking to deceive you. That is their feeling. Because for whatever reason, they didn't grow up in a loving home. They had whatever negative experiences, and they've chosen to let that feeling determine their reality. And so they choose to decide that they choose to believe that the universe is an unloving, cruel place based on their feelings. You can choose to believe something opposite from what your emotions are telling you. You can choose to believe something opposite from what your experience has told you. Because that is the projection onto your reality that you think is fixed, but it's not. But that's your choice. And this is one of the most frustrating things for me as a teacher. Because I can see that. I know what I've gone through, but I can see it in others. I can see when people are choosing to believe a certain way. And I know that it feels impossible for them to change the way they choose to view the reality, which will then change the actions that they take. It's very frustrating for me because I can tell them till I'm blue in the face. Just do the practices. Because that's what this is all about. The practices are actions. These practices are actions that change your reality. But you have to do the work. You don't have to change the way you feel. You can still feel like the world is an unfriendly, cruel place filled with false beings of light. You can have that feeling all you want. But if you take action, because these actions, whether you realize it or not, when you do mantra, when you do qigong, when you do the lightning qigong, when you do those actions, you are in effect saying to the universe, I choose to believe that I can overcome. I am choosing to believe that even though I don't have any evidence for it, I don't feel it, I'm choosing to change my relationship to this universe. And I'm doing that, every time you do these actions, you're sending that message to the universe, and the universe responds to those actions. Every time you do these practices, you automatically begin to align yourself with your highest self, with your soul. You also, when you do these practices, you align yourself with the ascended masters. You increase and open the communication with them. And their communication has the ability to change the choices and the actions that you take. Because the elves will always give you messages about your actions. Even if they're talking to you about what your feelings are and how your feelings affect your mood and how that affects others, that has to do with your actions. And I know from personal experience that if I take selfless actions towards other people, when I'm feeling full of selfishness, when I'm not taking any actions that don't have any manipulation. In other words, there's a lot of codependent people who do all kinds of good things for others, but they're doing it so that they can manipulate people to give them whatever it is they want. Love, attention, validation. It's very selfish. But they want to present themselves as these they want to present themselves as these unselfish people. But when you truly do selfless acts that you gain nothing from, for this specific purpose of burning off your own karma, people start to see you differently. There have been times, especially when I was much younger, I was filled with homicidal rage. And I would do what, my teachers told me to do. Do this, do that. One of them is, go do something for somebody else, but you can't ever let them know that you did anything for them. You can't ever get any credit for it. Those kinds of things, I would do that. And then people would start to say things like, Mike, I really like being around you because I can feel how calm you are. I can feel, I feel safe around you because I know you don't have any selfish intents. When I would be filled with selfishness and rage and violence. So my internal intrapsychic experience had no effect on them. What they responded to was my selfless actions. It's very important that you understand that. These are the things that can change your projection, which is your conscious experience of this world. There's nothing more powerful than taking actions that are contrary to your narcissism. Nothing more powerful in the universe. You want to get rich? That's how you're going to have to do it. You want to be happy, you want to have good relationships, you want to be physically healthy. My experience, and I'm willing for this to change, but so far it hasn't. My experience is that people who have life-threatening illnesses, people with cancer, I could list off a bunch of others. What you will find is an internal conflict between acting on their soul and acting in order to please other people, which is a selfish way of wanting them to love you, and being deluded in thinking that you're serving other people selflessly. That conflict creates illness. It's an action. There are people who are filled with rage, filled with anger. You look at them and you'd say, how can that person be 95 years old and be healthy? It's because they have no conflict. They still act towards what they need and what they want in life. Whereas the person pretending to be full of love all the time, pushing all of their rage and their anger downward, they end up sick with these horrific, life-threatening, life-ending illnesses. The point of that is, it is about your actions. And we don't get a pass on not becoming aware. You have to become aware while you're taking selfless, fearless action towards your soul and being filled with all of the emotions that you might have. You're not given a pass. You will have to become conscious. But the consciousness will be the result of the actions that you take. Not sitting around trying to become conscious. Nothing will happen if you don't take action. All right, I could continue talking in circles, but I'll leave it at there for now. So we've walked through all of the I don't see any questions here. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. You can go to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com. He is one of my certified astrologers. If you want to have me do for you what I did for him just now, you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com. Save yourself, I don't know, whatever it is now, a couple $1,000. And you can go there and learn my version of astrology and rune reading. And if you pass the test, I will give you your own website and I will promote you just like I did him. And you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com for that. Okay, here's another bot that I have to... I don't know how these people end up... how this happens. Anyway, this is spam. I got to get rid of the spam. Okay. Rosetta Stone. Let's see what else. Daniel Cardenas, question. First off, Daniel Cardenas, thank you for writing out the word question in all caps. Thank you for listening and following that. I want to encourage you to actually write out your thoughts completely. I know if you're on a phone and you got your thumbs, it's hard to do, but put yourself into the question. Write a full question and a full sentence so it makes sense. I don't know what question you're asking me here. Is all you're talking about Greek mythology? Are you asking me, am I talking about Greek mythology? The obvious answer to that question is no. This is Norse mythology. I don't know if that wasn't clear to you or not. I don't know the point of your question. How does that question help you? I'm using Norse mythology to explain how you can better your life. It's just one tool of many. I've chosen today to talk about the 9 worlds of the world tree. These are the same 9 worlds that you find in multiple different traditions. So I'm sure there's some similarities to Greek mythology, but it's an okay question. I wish you would focus more on what I'm saying instead of something sort of tangential like that. Caleb Spears, honest feeling. This teaching is bringing me so much peace. I'm really happy to hear that. Casey Jones, I don't know what that is. I'm just going to delete that. I don't know why that's even there. Lockdown.thunderwizard.com. That's me. All right. So I don't see any questions. How many people are on? We got 32 people on here. All right. So I'll do a little bit of business. Give you guys some time to ask questions if you have any. And if not, we can just leave it there. I think it's a perfectly good lecture. Very helpful. So I am looking forward to... I'm feeling myself coming out of this funk that I've been in, and I'm looking forward to whatever my new life is. Now that I've, my surfing fantasy, Australia fantasy is over. Now I'm looking forward to creating whatever my new fantasy is. And there's a possibility I might be doing some live seminars. I haven't made any decisions on that, but perhaps we'll do that. More than likely, what those will entail is this. I definitely need to teach that in person to people. We'll probably do some of this stuff, which is the lightning qigong and the other stuff that we do here. And we may just do some, some live lectures. I don't know. I haven't figured any of that out yet. I'm going to start putting more effort into uploading more videos here to the Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong. So I recommend everybody listening, if you're not doing that, I recommend doing that. I created this Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong. I created that specifically to help people be able to tap into their soul and create their reality. I also, specifically started creating that because what we need to do more than anything right now is fight against, there is a spiritual war going on which is being played out through our politicians, our governments, and our supposed regulatory agencies that are supposed to be helping us. These are all being fueled by extremely rich, powerful, corrupt people. And these people are waging war against your connection to your soul. So the lightning qigong stimulates the lightning energy that is normally dormant in your heart center. That when is released, it actually gives you power to destroy negativity, while at the same time healing your connection to your own soul. So if you haven't signed up for that, I recommend that you do. We're coming towards the end of the month. We're at January 27th. So if you want to wait until the 1st, that's a good idea, because what happens is when you subscribe, you'll get charged for that month. So if you can't wait, you can go ahead and subscribe. You will get charged for this month, but when the 1st of the month comes around, you can message me on the Patreon site and let me know, hey, I signed up last week, and I will reimburse you for that first month if you sign up in the last week of the month. And that is incredibly inexpensive. I mean, for what you're getting. You get access to all of the Lightning Qigong videos and teachings. You get access to the Manifestation Mastery course. You get access to the Mastery of Shamanism course. I mean, you can't get through all of that. I don't know how long it would take, a year, a couple of years. You get access to all of that, as well as you get access to the highest level energy teachings that I have available. And that is my commitment to you, that this is going to be the new Maoshan Temple, where I'm going to give you the highest level teachings that I'm aware of, and there's a lot more to come. If you really want to reach that elite level of spirit fighting power, you want to have the power coming out of your hands to literally fight off demons with your bare hands, you can go here to maoshan.thunderwizard.com. And the combination of this and this is everything that I have, the highest level teachings that I have. There's nothing more powerful that I can give to you, and I'm making this available to everybody so that for the first time in history, none of these things have not been taught publicly on this level ever. This is the first time. And I take that back. So the first time in history that this has been given to the world, and we need it now more than ever. If there has ever been a time in this world where we need this lightning energy of the heart released onto the world, it's now. Because there is a battle for control of your individuated identity, a battle for your soul. And if we do not fight these incredibly rich, powerful, narcissistic psychopaths who have taken over our governments and taken over your health, if we do not fight them off, the world that they want to create for us will be a living hell. It'll be worse than any science fiction nightmare film you've ever seen. I mean, that's why I can't even watch science fiction, horror movies anymore because nothing even comes close to what's already happening in the world. It's really phenomenal. All right, so I've done my business now. If you've had any questions, you should have had time to ask them. Let me see if there are any questions now. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. I'm joining Coda soon. That's Codependence Anonymous. How do you reconcile their use of the term God into shamanism? Well, 12-step, all 12-step programs say God as you understand God. So that could be anything. You want to be a Satanist? You can be a member of Coda. You want to be, if God is a doorknob for you, doorknobs are amazing things. Without doorknobs, we can't open doors. If people use the ocean, they use the sky. You can use whatever you want as long as it's something greater than you. If you want to worship your own soul, so there's no reconciliation that needs to be done. The word God is confusing, and that's one of the failings of it. But they also use the word higher power. And your higher power can be absolutely anything you want. So you don't need to reconcile anything. You're uncomfortable with that term as it reminds me of, so that's understandable. And a lot of people will see God that way, but that's their choice. So the 12 steps allow you to see God however you want. I know atheists who are in 12-step programs. God can be good, orderly direction. It can be anything you want. So I understand your fear, but it's unnecessary. You have the right, if somebody in any 12-step group, and they won't do this in Coda, I'm almost absolutely certain, but anybody in any 12-step group, if they start telling you, who the real God is, you can say, no. The traditions are very clear. It's your higher power as you choose to understand it. Don't project your beliefs onto me. Don't take that right away from me. All right, I need to get rid of another spam. Let me get rid of that. Okay. Rhonda Templeton, thank you. Okay. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. Question. What do I need to do to become successful on YouTube? Well, first off, we have to address the assumption. Are you meant to be successful on YouTube? I don't know. Is that part of your orlog? I don't know. I chose to have YouTube be my. I chose that I was going to be successful and I was going to use YouTube, and that was 10 or 12 years ago. And YouTube it's my sole way that I get clients and income. Now I've tweaked it. Because my original idea was to become, to be one of these people on YouTube that has millions of views and they can just make money based off of their, the advertising. So that never panned out. If I'm lucky, I might get $100, So I'll take it, but obviously I can't live on YouTube like that. So I had to get creative, and it started with me being absolutely, completely, utterly committed that I'm going to find a way. I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to be financially, I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I can pay my bills and, I'm not homeless. So the way that I use Patreon isn't normally used that way. I use Patreon as a subscription service. That's not what it's intended for. It's intended to be where people go and they just give you, they support you with money and you give them little gifts. But I said, hey, I can turn this into a subscription service. Normally I would have to pay a shit ton of money to have one of these websites that I don't want to do that. I also made a commitment that I was going to find ways to make money without having to pay for it. I do end up paying a fee, but it comes out the back end. So I don't have to come out of pocket for what I do. But all of that, to answer your question, came from my absolute inflexible commitment to This is how I'm going to make my living. I don't know exactly how yet, but it's going to be through YouTube. As I've told you, I'm sure I told you this before, but I also made the commitment when I started my channel, and I was serious about it. I said, I'm not going to even begin analyzing my success for a year. I'm going to just upload as much as I can. I'm going to experiment and do as much as I possibly can and rack my brain to think of all the different ways that I'm going to upload to YouTube. And I did that solidly for a year before I even stopped. So if you're uploading to YouTube and it's only been a few months, it's, you know, if you want to follow my model, you don't even analyze how many views you have, how many subscriptions. You don't analyze that. The other thing that you do is, what I would have done differently is, as you see throughout just about every single video, almost every single video, you will see me pointing to things. You know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 links, 5 if you count the one that I put into the chat. I've got 5 links. All of those links lead to services that people can purchase. I even 6 if you count me saying I said go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. 6 links. My courses.thunderwizard.com should have all of my links. All of those links go to something that could bring money to me. Now, people aren't required to watch my channel and pay for anything. In fact, I've gone out of my way to give people more than enough free stuff. If people just put the slightest bit of effort to look on my channel, they can get free teachings and practices that are worth thousands of dollars. They can get it for free. But I go out of my way to make sure that in every program, I'm constantly pointing to where to go to buy stuff, because that's how that's how I pay my bills. This is my business. So you have to treat it like a business. You have to treat it like, and this, by the way, isn't just for YouTube. Whatever your choice of business is, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to make money doing it. The other thing is, whatever it is that you would do normally, turn that into money. I'm doing that right now. I would come onto YouTube and I would talk about these things just because I need to get it out. But I always try to turn it into money. I'm pointing here, I'm pointing there, all the time. So how do you be successful on YouTube? First and foremost, you commit 100% with everything you've got that I'm going to be successful on YouTube, even if it kills me. And be literal about that. You think every day that you get up, you think, what can I upload to YouTube today? What can I try differently? What can I do? And you experiment with everything. If you look on my previous videos, like if you go back a few years, you'll see very edited videos where I have music in the beginning, and there's like this edited introduction, and then the whole thing, I'll have pictures. I spent hours editing all the videos. Well, that turned out not to do anything. I found out by that point I had been on YouTube for 7 years or something. By then I stumbled onto doing live streams, and live streams is where I really started getting more and more clients, and it just took off from there. And I didn't think it would. I didn't want to do live streams. I thought that's not what they told me to do. If you go and watch all of the tutorials, they say, oh, you have to make good videos, you have to have lighting, and you have to have an expensive camera, and you have to edit it. I tried all that and it didn't work. I did the opposite, which is I just press record and live stream, and I just spout whatever the hell is coming out of my face, and people love it. And that's when I started making money. But that came because I experimented. But again, I don't know. Is YouTube where you belong? I don't know. But what's really happening, Vincent, is that you're bumping into your own self-doubt, your own resistance. And in terms of YouTube, you have to give yourself 1 full year without even blinking, and you do everything and you try absolutely everything. If after the first year absolutely nothing has happened, then maybe you can go, okay, maybe YouTube isn't for me. But even then, I was just absolutely committed. I was going to find a way to make YouTube work for me. So I don't know what else to tell you. I hope that's helpful to you. Eric Stoop, question, how do I find my ore log? Eric, I've seen your name, so I think you've been on my channel a while. My first question to you, are you doing any of these things? My guess is probably not. So the best way to make use of my channel is not to listen to me gab. Me sitting around gabbing on the channel should empower you to take the actions. The most beneficial thing you can do is to do the work. Whether you go onto my YouTube channel and you look at the playlists and you do the free energy work, the Qigong, the Heaven Earth Qigong, the Hool Breath, the Thor's hammer, the mantras, the rituals, do that if you don't want to pay for anything. In terms of that, if you want to find out how you can find your true ore log, I've laid that out as clearly as possible. You can go to career.thunderwizard.com. Vincent, that's link number 7 I've now just put out. You can go to career.thunderwizard.com, scroll to the bottom, and purchase a session with me. I have, to this point, I've never had a client that I wasn't able to help them determine for themselves what their ore log is. Them following through on it, that's out of my power. I can't make you do it. But I can, if you give me an hour, within that hour, I'm going to ask you all the right questions and you're going to figure out what it is you truly want. We'll find out what your conflict is. If you don't want to work with me personally, you go to career.thunderwizard.com. You can purchase that video course where I take you through all of the questions that I ask people when I work with them. And if you choose to, I didn't put any what do you call it? I didn't put any certification on it, but I could have. I could have just used that as a certification course to help people become life coaches, to help people find their true path in life. So if somebody buys that video course, if you chose to and you committed to it, you could then turn that around and you could turn that into a business. And you could say, I can, just like I do, I can guarantee you within an hour, I can help you find out exactly what your perfect career is, what your perfect path in life is. You have to do it, but I guarantee you I can help you figure that out. You'll learn how to do that. So that's my answer to you, Eric. Again, my question to you is, what have you done on my channel other than listening to me talk? So, Vincent, I'm reading the rest of Vincent's question. So you're doing all the right things. The question is, are you being patient enough? Here's the questions you need to ask yourself. Do you have your bills paid for? Do you have food? Do you have a place to sleep? If the answer to all those questions is yes, then you're being taken care of. You might want to do more, you might want to move out, you might want to have a bigger place. I've been in that situation before. That's a whole other discussion. Those are the first questions, Vincent, you want to ask yourself. I already know that based on the last time we spoke, all of your needs are being taken care of. So the universe is providing for you. You have the freedom to do whatever the hell you want in terms of creating a business for yourself. So you may just need to be patient. You're doing everything that you need to do. You'll, like I said, after a year, like 365 days of doing that 100%, maybe you can stop and go, is YouTube the right place for me? But I don't know. But I do know that if you are 100% committed to doing whatever the hell it takes for you to have the career that you want, the income that you want based on doing what you want, if you are literally committed to having that or dying, you will have it. I've been on the verge of homelessness multiple times. I mean, when I started my channel and then I got divorced, I had no idea how I was going to pay my bills. And that pressure cooker pushed me into continually trying new things, all under the guise of these are things I would normally do anyway. I refused to go work at Walmart. What are some other things I would do? How can I turn that into money? And, I don't even know how many websites I have now. Many of them are not even, they're still out there. There's still all kinds of things people can buy from me that I don't even promote anymore. So that's the other thing. Just never stop trying and never stop experimenting. Okay, what else? So I think I answered Rosetta Stone. So I've seen your name as well. So what are the two most important things in life? Paying attention and putting effort. I have told you exactly how to interact with me. I have told you that I only want questions and feelings. I'm not interested in comments. I'm not interested in opinions. And that goes for anybody. Somebody wants to tell me how great I am. Unless they put honest feeling, I'm just going to scroll past it. Somebody wants to argue with me or give me I don't care. I scroll past it. That's not what I do. This is a classroom. And in classrooms, you don't have comments. The teacher doesn't go, anybody have any comments? He says, anybody have any questions? This is my classroom. So I know you've been here before. Why did you not understand that? Why did you not pay attention and respect how I do my classrooms to know that comments are not something that I respond to? Stephanie Sprague. Question. I'm an old lady whose energy is ugh, can't see. I have no idea. I don't see a question in there. So I'll give you a little bit of time to try and write out a question. Okay. Let's give Stephanie a little bit of time to ask her question. So far, that's not a question. No? No question? Okay, so I don't know what you're asking me, Stephanie. All right, so I guess that's it for today, guys. In freezing cold Florida, I don't know where else I would have gone. Florida is the safest place. I believe that this pandemic thing is about to work itself out. I think that Omicron is going to force herd immunity. And I think that this thing will work itself out. I don't see how they can keep going with this. Anything's possible. But this was the place that I needed to go because at the time that I left Australia, I didn't know what was going to happen in the world, and this was the safest place for me to be. It certainly was the best place for me to get COVID and recover. If I had been in Australia, they might have locked me up. Yeah, this was the safest place for me, so I'm looking forward to creating a new life, but damn, it's cold. Freaking doesn't get up above 45 degrees. It's just horrifically cold. I don't know what's going on. All right, I've been waiting around for Stephanie. She didn't get around to asking a question, so we're going to move. I'm going to say goodbye. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your participation. I hope you got something out of today. Oh, did she finally get a question out there? Yeah. Mm. All right. So, Stephanie, I'm an old lady whose energy is scattered and would like to know a Qigong practice for alignment after a tumultuous. I don't know what that is. So, Stephanie, there isn't a one specific Qigong for what you're asking. What you're saying is that your energy's scattered. Any Qigong practice will help you with that. So if you want the free stuff, I've got it on here. I've mentioned it already. I'll write them out here for you. You can go look on my channel for them. The Hool breath is the basic practice. The Heaven, Earth, Qigong is a basic practice. The Awakening, the Immortals Qigong is probably the highest vibrational energy that is true Maoshan energy that I'm giving away for free. I should be charging thousands of dollars for it, but I give it away for free. Thor's hammer. There's just a few things you can do. Those are all available on my channel. There isn't a one specific thing for that. Just go do some energy practice and do it regularly. If you want to have me walk you through energy practices, that's exactly what the Warrior 90-Day Challenge is about. I walk you through exact energy practices, and you just press play and you follow along with me. So I can't do any more than that for you. That's what's there. Make use of whatever you want. Let's see. Conscious awareness and Rosetta Stone. I've seen your name. How is it that I want you to ask a question? I've told you exactly how to do that. I'll give you a chance to write that question out following my directions. I don't want to co-sign you not paying attention and not putting effort. I'll answer your question if you write it out the way that I ask you to. Conscious Awareness asks question, will you post the website where I may see the books you've written? Guys, I really wish you'd pay more attention. What do you think that is? Courses.thunderwizard.com. It'll take you directly to all of my everything, including my books. All right? I'm now going to co-sign your lack of willingness to work, because the two most important things is pay attention and put effort. You didn't do either of those things. You want me to do it for you, so I will. You can go to Michael William Denny, DENNEY.com. That will take you directly to all of my books. I hope that's helpful for you. No other questions? Rosetta Stone still hasn't figured out how to ask questions the way that I want. So I'm not going to answer that question. All right, that's it for me then, guys. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy. And if you haven't gotten Omicron yet, go to COVID19criticalcare.com. That's the word COVID, the numbers 19, criticalcare.com. That's the FLCCC website. And look around for all of the herbs and the vitamins and the off-label prescriptions that you can take to protect yourself and lessen Omicron when it gets to you, because it will. Everybody listening to me, if you haven't had it already, you will get it. Vaccinated or not, you are going to get it, and you will feel it. But there are things you can do. I followed their protocol, and I did not have a sore throat when I had Omicron. I did not have a cough. I had fever, and I was fatigued for a couple of weeks, but I had a very mild case, and so If you haven't already done that, go do that. If you're having long COVID symptoms, like your COVID just won't resolve itself, go on there. And again, there's connections to doctors and prescriptions and herbs and vitamins and stuff like that that will help you resolve those issues. So I'm looking forward to everybody finally getting their best vaccination possible, which is having had COVID and recovered. Now I'm completely vaccinated. I can't get any more protected than I am. And eventually we'll all get there and we can say goodbye to this COVID nonsense. There you go. Nothing else? Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. Okay, I will see you guys all very soon. I wish you all the best. If anything I've said or done has been hurtful or offensive to anybody, my sincere apologies. This is just how I do things. This is how I do things in my classroom. Take it or leave it. My goal is to be as helpful as I possibly can, and this is just how I do it. So please forgive me if anything I've said or done has been confusing, offensive, hurtful. If you stick around long enough, you'll figure out how to interact with me in ways that will actually be helpful for you. All right, that's it. I wish you guys all the best. I will see you guys all